As I would cruise down Interstate 580 to Peppermill for vlog 322, I'd find myself thinking two things. One, how grateful I was for all the kind words that many of you had to say in the comment section following the last vlog. Successfully folding that set was certainly one of the highlights of my poker playing career to this point. But the second thing I was wondering was, aren't I supposed to occasionally win when I flop sets? Outside of that hand with the deuces, it has not been happening much lately. This vlog would be shot on a week when I'd make some more progress on my golf game. But not as much as Anna has made, as she is now crushing her Callaway driver. Yeah. I'd also watched the movie F1 for the first time. And if you're like me, this was your favorite shot of the movie, with Brad Pitt and his van on the roof of the Rio parking garage, a place I'm assuming we've all been. I'd get into Peppermill early at about 10 a.m. on this Tuesday, a place where one man loves Jack King off. I'd sit down in seat 7 and begin logging my session on the left pocket poker bankroll manager. Which, by the way, I must say, are you like me? Because I always do keep my phone in my left pocket. Keys in the right, phone in the left. Always been the case for me. Anyway, as I mentioned last week, we've now partnered with that app. And if you want a free month, just scan that QR code or use promo code DEACH. This game would start at 10 a.m., and I wouldn't put $1 in the pot after the flop until 11:15. We'd get a live 25 on the button and a call under the gun. I have pocket aces, middle position, and raise it to 75, obviously wanting action. Straddle folds immediately, but the limper calls after about 10 seconds. So, with 165 in, the flop is Jack 6-6 rainbow, and he checks. I bet 80 here, almost half the pot. And after giving it more thought than I expected, he does call. I would later find out what he was thinking. With 325 in, the turn is the 9 of diamonds. Now, he does a stop-and-go play, and leads out for 125. And I would make the call pretty quickly. I was kind of worried that he might play a 6 in this fashion, but I wasn't ready to part with the hand yet, so I'd put in the chips. And with 575 in, the river is another 9. And now he bets 175. He's never doing this with a jack, so you can completely rule that out. He's going to have more 6s than most players in this spot, and he could certainly show up here with a 9 or 2. What hand would he bluff in this spot? If he has a hand like pocket 7s, it hasn't been completely counterfeited. If he has a hand like pocket 3s, it has been. But would he really even call the flop with pocket 3s? It seemed unlikely to me. I know some guys will just kind of float you on flops like this with hands like ace-king or ace-queen. But I have 2 of the aces, so that feels particularly unlikely. So what's he betting? I just couldn't figure a hand out. And perhaps it is the snake-bit version of me that would ignore the pot odds that should have indicated that I should have called here, and would find a way to fold this hand. I did not think I would get a reveal, but I would. He shows 8-5 of clubs. One of the weak points of my game over a number of years probably has been giving my opponents too much credit, and unfortunately, I would put that weakness on display here in hand number 1. I would then see another player making queens full of jacks, beating jacks full of queens. And I would wonder, how does one end up on the right side of coolers in this game? Because I don't remember. Northern Nevada is packed full of burners from all over the world this week, as I'm sure most of you know. And as I often do during this week, I would check in on the Burning Man live stream. And sure enough, weather is wreaking havoc out there in the Black Rock Desert. We would then get a +1 open to 20 and 2 calls. I have Jack 9 of diamonds on the button and look to squeeze. I make it 125. Original Razor calls, which I actually kind of was hoping for in a weird way. And everyone else folds, which I was also hoping for. So with 305 in, the flop is Queen, Jack 7 with 2 clubs and 1 diamond. He leads out for 75. So I have flopped exactly the kind of hand where raising makes no sense, because he's going to call me with better and often fold worse. So I just make this call, and 455 in, the turn is the 3 of clubs. He now checks Absolutely hating that card, I also check, and the river is an offsuit 10. I thought he might come out and bet here, but he doesn't. He checks. I just check it back, and he shows 7-8. And we take that one down. I then learned something I didn't know. If you get gifted a bottle of wine in a casino and open it and start drinking it, they can see that on surveillance, and they can come find you and charge you a corkage fee. Didn't know that until this day. 8-handed, we get an open to 40 from the under the gun position. I have pocket 5s in middle position and make the call. Small blind comes in as well. So with 130 in, the flop is king 10-7, 2 hearts, 1 club. And to my surprise, no one bets. Turn is the 5 of clubs, giving me a set. Small blind would lead out for 75. Under the gun starts stacking chips, and while he's doing that, I'm actually, of course, thinking, how much am I going to raise here? But he doesn't call. He raises it to 200. Knowing this opponent the way I do, this is not going to be a draw. It's possible that he has turned a weird 2-pair here, or somehow slow played an overpair on the flop, and this is when he's choosing to put the money in. But I didn't think either of those was all that possible. So I was kind of scratching my head as to what the hell was going on here. And there's one thing I knew, and it's that I didn't love the idea of raising here. So I just called to 200, hoping the small blind would fold, but he doesn't. And with 730 in, we're still 3 ways to the river, which at the time I thought was the single worst card in the deck for me. It would come the 9 of clubs. Turned out I was anything but the worst card for me. So flush and straight draws come in. Small blind checks. And then, to my amazement, under the gun checks. So it is on me. You know me, I am the thinnest value better in the world. But my instincts in this hand told me not to value bet at all, as I can see the guy on my right checking back a set of kings or a set of 10s on this flop as a slow play and then becoming worried about the flush on the river. Did I think that was overly likely after he checked it to me here? No. But after some thought, I figured this was not a spot to go for value. I just checked back a set. I did not see what the guy in the blind had. But under the gun does turn over pocket kings for set over set. You know, I remember when I used to think that sets were something you wanted in this game. Now I've lost with 3 of the last 4 that I've made. And never once to a flush or a straight. I open pocket 10s early position and get 3-bet by the big blind. Thought about just going out now, but I didn't. Though, when I saw an ace-queen-7 flop, I found myself wishing I had. I would add on a hockey puck and was stuck about 800 in the game. We then get a +1 raise to 35 and a call from the cutoff. I have 9, 10 of hearts in the small blind here. Can I possibly squeeze? I suppose I could. And had the cutoff not called, I think I might have. But he's not a big fan of folding in spots like this. So I elected to just see this flop, as does the big blind. And with 140 in, I flop an open-ended straight draw and a flush draw. And look, I'm not just going to sit here and play this thing passively. I'm going to bet right out with this. And that's what I do. I make it 75. Big blind folds, and the original raiser in the under the gun +1 spot raises me here. He makes it 200. Now, I'm never folding here. He has 600 behind at this point, and I have him covered. Now, is that enough to get him to consider folding a hand like ace-jack? I don't know. But I'm not just going to play this thing passively. I have to at least try to get him to consider folding. And if not, then realize my equity. So, I jam it all in, hoping to fade the snap call. But I get snap called. And he says that he has a jack in what is now an $1,800 pot. I ask if he wants to run it twice. He says yes. So hit that like button. I'm going to need your help in this run out. You know from experience that it will indeed help. We get a heart on the first board and a heart on the second board. So we win a nice one and are back in the black, albeit barely, on the day. I would then get fed this Instagram reel from a poker room in Taiwan. I'm not sure what the point of the reel was, but I will admit, I did watch it till the end. I would 3-bet pocket queens and get 4-bet to $375 by a very tough opponent. Based partially on that, I would simply fold the queens pre-flop and move on, and I wouldn't get any indication if it was the right move or not. We would then see this man win a $4,000 pot after he rivered the nut flush, bet it, and his opponent in the hand, who had been a super nit all day, clearly just bringing his backpack to the poker room and grinding it out, decided this was the spot to try an all-in bluff when he missed the other flush draw, and his timing could not have been worse. I would find myself wishing that I had just left after playing that hand a minute ago. If I had done that, I would have booked a small win on the day. But given the fact that I don't have many hours available this week to play poker, I wanted to play as many as I could on this day. And during the last 2 hours of play, I didn't get dealt the best hand once. But I would try to force the issue in a couple of spots that I never should have, including one where I'd 3-bet Jack 10 off and would decide to fire a continuation bet of $160 on a 9-4 deuce board, thinking there was a good chance my opponent missed. But the real reason my bluff was stupid is because this is a guy who might miss the flop and still call. No word on if he did it this time. I would try just a one-and-done scenario and would give up. And if you're asking me, did I spend the next 4 hours being pissed off at myself for doing it? The answer is yes. Because I had managed to turn a win into a loss, and then I had run out of time. It was a day that, despite being on the wrong end of yet another set-over-set scenario, I still ran good enough to win. I just didn't play good enough. All right, doing this over here because it is a torrential downpour out there. Haven't said that much here in Reno, but it's happening right now. Those at Burning Man are getting absolutely drenched probably out there in Pershing County, but anyway. I gotta say, it is unbelievable how fast time goes when you have a limited amount of it. I just looked down at my watch seemingly seconds ago, and it was 2 o'clock, knowing I had to leave at 5 to go pick up my son. Snapped my fingers, it's 5 o'clock, and I've turned a winning session into a losing one. Just losing a ton of small pots over the last several hours of play in a game that was really good. I had plenty of guys that were giving action, and I just could not get the best hand, seemingly at all, after the last time you saw me win a pot on the vlog. $413 loss on a very frustrating final couple of hours here at Peppermill.